Hello everyone, this is the continuation of scaling techniques. We were discussing about summated scales. Now after summated scale we have what is called a factor scales. So it is basically these scales are developed through factor analysis. You do factor analysis and develop the scale. Factor analysis is that I list down about 10 or 15 variables and I do a factor analysis and I sort all these 15 variables under three main factors. So that is called a factor analysis, and factor scales are developed based upon the intercorrelation of items, which indicates that there is a common factor which account for the relationship between those items. That is, you develop a factor scale based on intercorrelations of items, which indicates that there is a common factor accounting for the relationship between them. So that is the meaning of the term factor analysis also. So factor scales are developed as a result of factor analysis. When it comes to factor scales, there are two different types of scales: semantic differential scale and multi-dimensional scaling. Semantic differential scale and multi-dimensional scaling, and you might have heard this in marketing, MDS, multi-dimensional scaling. These scales are commonly used in marketing area. So coming to semantic differential scale, you can see I have made an example like that. That is, there is a set of evaluation factors for assessing leadership. You are going to check whether that particular person has leadership ability or not, based upon 7 variables. I have listed 7 variables. So how I list 7 variables is, as a factor, as a leader he is successful, as a leader he is unsuccessful, as a leader he is severe, as a leader he is lenient, as a factor he is as a leader he is very hot, as a leader he is very cold, as a leader he is active, he is passive, he is strong, he is weak, he is fast, he is slow, he is true, he is false, etc. Any variables you can take into account. So these are the 7 items I listed under leadership. So you are going to rate a particular person based upon the leadership. So in one end it is the good characteristics, in the other end it is absolutely the opposite of the good characteristics. So this is given in a particular scale format. So you can see 0, neutral, you don't have any opinion, you have a negative opinion, you have a high negative opinion, you have a very high negative opinion, and here you have okay opinion, he is almost good, he is very good. So this is okay, average, very good. So higher value indicates he is good, 3. So what I say that is that if a respondent agrees that for all the 7 factors, all the 7 variables, he gives a rating of 3. So the maximum the maximum weightage is 21. 7 into 3, understood? For all the 7 variables I give a value of 3. I am satisfied with him as a leader. He is successful, he is severe, he is hot, he is active, he is strong, fast, true, etc. I strongly agree to it. So I give a value of 3. So 7 into 3 is 21, and which shows that the respondent agrees to all the 7 items. And in some cases I agree with only 7 variables. I don't agree that he is very active. Others are okay. So for 6 variables I agree that he is strong. So 6 into 3 is 18. For one variable I give him a rating of 2. So 1 into 2 is 2. 18 plus 2 is 20. I give only 20. So this is how you identify. Respondent agrees to all the 7 items, then it is 21. Respondent agrees to 6 items, it is 18. Respondent agrees to only 5 items, it is 15, etc. So if you have an ideal candidate, you will have 21, and if you have a worst candidate, it is minus 21. So you will have a weightage from 21 to minus 21 when you do a factor analysis or factor scaling with what is called a semantic differential scale. Agree, semantic differential scaling. Then next is what is called a multi-dimensional scaling. This multi-dimensional scaling is basically used to develop perceptual maps, and it is commonly used in marketing area. And it is little bit complicated also, and is used when variables are analyzed simultaneously and all variables are independent uncorrelated variables. They each one is not correlated. They are different types of variables and they are analyzed simultaneously. All variables are independent also. And one type, what I said before, is perceptual mapping. It is a type of multi-dimensional space of objects. We can find the relative similarity of different sets of pairs, etc. Perceptual mapping, that is a mapping based upon a perception. So when I think about fruity, what comes to my mind is it is not an energy drink. It is a drink which every people can have. It is a sweetened drink. It is not a fizz type of drink, etc. So that is what perception which comes to my mind, which I think about fruity. When I think about Pepsi or Coke, it is something different. And when it comes to Coke, Pepsi, Diet Coke, then it is a frizzy thing. It gives energy, it gives an pack up energy, etc. So different perception. So that is a perception which comes into my mind. Your perception is different. So when I'm collecting data regarding that from the market, I get n number of perception. So I cannot number it, or I cannot keep it in a smaller frame. I need to have a bigger frame. That is where I use what is called a space. It is a multi-dimensional spacing. For each and every product you take, I think from different perspective, you think from different perspectives. So there are n number of perspectives when it comes to different sets of people from different countries, from different cultures, etc. So we require a multi-dimensional space when it comes to perceptual mapping. So think about an automobile industry. You take Maruti or you take Hyundai, etc. They have n number of variants. So how do each people perceive automobiles in their mind? So I require a space to map it. So some of the variables which I consider is cost, from higher cost to lower cost, from higher luxury to lower luxury, higher reliability to lower reliability, etc. On the other side, which we can call it as a basic utility of owning a car. The luxury you enjoy when you use a car is on the other side. So you see there are three streams which I have marked. So in each stream there will be different variants of cars. You can see different variants of cars in this stream, which says that high cost, high luxury, high reliability, etc. Here it is when it comes to moderate between reliability and basic usability, or cost and basic utility. Here it comes to the basic utility types of cars, like your Wagoner, your Swift, etc. may come here. Here your BMW, highly luxurious Volvo, all these types of high cost priced vehicles may come here. So this is a particular space. And I've also taken a smaller map of a perceptual map of soft drinks. So this is a multi-dimensional scaling where I have taken different types of areas, like fun is considered, very sweet, not sweet, serious type of is considered, and I tried to plot the perception of different people towards different soft drinks, and I am going to place it here. So Pepsi Max, when it comes, it shows that it is not sweet, but it is highly fun oriented, Pepsi Max. When it comes to Diet Coke, it is not sweet and it is a little bit serious type of drink, serious, and it comes in the moderate space, not too serious, not too in the area of not too sweet. Similarly, when it comes to Pepsi, it is very sweet and it is also coming into the fun area. So this is how it is done when it comes to perceptual maps. So coming to a revision part, we started with two types of scales. One is called a rating scale, the other is called a comparative scale. Hope you remember the comparative scale, where we spoke about paired comparison, where we spoke about the other type, method of rank order. In paired comparison, what you can do it, the respondents can express their attitude by making a choice between two objects. That is, if you take Coke and Pepsi, based upon some criteria, you can identify Coke is good or Pepsi is good, etc. And if there are when it comes to paired comparison, not paired, rank order comparison, where you have a larger number of variants, etc., you have to use this particular equation to know how many pairs you require. That is n is equal to n into n minus 1 by 2. That is, there are 5 brands A, B, C, D and E, n is equal to 5, so you have 10 comparisons, and you can use ordinal data to evaluate that when it comes to paired comparisons. Then another area which we discussed is rank order scaling. Rank order scaling, which comes as part of the ranking scales or comparative scales, which measures preferences for brands as well as attributes. The respondents are given several objects simultaneously and asked to rank them according to some criteria, and rank 1 will be for the most preferred brand when it comes into ordinal data. So one of the area which I stated during when I started with the scaling techniques is, in rank order you are given 10 variables, 10 into 10 minus 1 by 2 times, that is 45 paired comparisons can be done. But if the number is higher, if you have 20 variables, it's very difficult. 20 into 20 minus 1 by 2, it is very difficult. So you cannot use rank order in that particular case. So what we do is another type of method which is called a Q sort. When you have a large number of objects for paired comparison, when you have large number, you do a rank order and then pair it. But even if the number is very high, what you do is you do what is called a Q sort ranking or a Q sort scaling techniques. It is used for large number of objects. It's used for ranking large number of objects. When the number of objects, variables, factors, etc. is very large, and you use what is called a Q sort. Here objects are sorted into piles based upon some understanding, based upon some similarity, etc. You sort those variables into smaller piles with respect to certain criteria, and each pile is considered as a single variable, because in each pile you will have n number of variables which are similar in one way or the another based upon some criteria. So if you have about 100 variables, I can pile up into 10, 11 or 12 types of piles. Each piles may contain, if I can rank it, each pile may contain about 10 variables, another pile may contain about 8 variables, another pile may contain about 12 variables, etc. And you can find out, you can compare one pile with respect to another pile. That is, you pair up one pile with respect to another pile, not the variables. So that is called Q sort. So example is 100 attitude statements are given to respondents, and you are asked to place them into 11 piles ranging from most highly agreed to least agreed. So the first pile is most highly agreed, second pile is highly agreed, third pile is moderatively agreed, next pile is agreed. Like that you can divide it into 11 piles. So that is called Q sort. It is an extension of rank order type of scaling. Rank order type of scaling comes under ranking scales or comparative scales. The next is about non-comparative scales. So till now we have seen about comparative scales, paired comparison, rank order comparison, Q sort. Now we have the non-comparative type of scaling. That is, each object is sealed independently of the others. Each object is scaled independently of the others, and the resulting data is assumed to be in an interval or in a ratio scale. But in our research area, we will be always assuming it to be in an interval scale. Each object will be scaled independently, and the resulting data will happen in an interval scale. That is, the object is judged in absolute terms against some specified criteria with reference to other similar items, and you are not combining it with other different items. You are taking each and every variable in as a separate entity based upon some specified criteria, and it is not taken into consideration or with reference to other similar items. So ratings will be in the form of like, dislike, above average, below average, or other categories like excellent, good, average, below average, etc. Usually 3 to 7 point scales are usually used in this particular type. Non-comparative scales. Non-comparative scales is basically your rating scales. You are not comparing, each entity is different. Like is different, dislike is different, above average is different, below average is different, excellent is different, good is different. So that is called, you are not comparing, you are just rating it. That is called a non-comparative scale. Each object is scaled independently of the others and the resulting data is assumed to be in an interval or in a ratio scale. Usually 3 to 7 point scales are usually used, and non-comparative scales are considered to be graphic rating scales or itemized rating scales. So there is no need to move directly into graphic rating scales or in itemized rating scales. In itemized rating scales, items will be listed one after the another. We'll see more details when it comes to next area. And then another area which we discussed is about measuring attitude of people. When it comes to social sciences, we always use one or two questions to identify the perception, to identify the attitude of people, etc., towards a particular brand or product, towards a particular service, towards a particular person, towards a particular system, the type of operations, etc. So what we use is, we prepare a different type of scales which we call it as an attitude scale. Here the respondent agrees. All this comes under non-comparative scaling also. It is somewhat more or less connected to what is called a rating scale, the attitude scale. Here the respondents agree or disagree with the number of statements relevant to the issue. Here the respondent will agree or disagree. That is your level of, that is, I give a different number of statements. You can agree or disagree. You can show your level of agreement or disagreement to the statement which is relevant to you. And attitude scale can be an arbitrary scale. It can be an arbitrary scale in the sense, arbitrary, based upon the researcher who is doing a research and his experience and his competence, he collects few items which is appropriate with regarding to the topic. So in your project also, you have identified various variables based upon your knowledge, based upon your competence, based upon your experience in this particular area, etc. You have collected a few items, you have identified a few factors. So you have identified some factor like age is required. You have identified a factor like the type of sports is important. You have identified a factor like the promotions for this particular, the perception of sports people towards a particular brand of energy drink, etc. So this is all your views. So you develop what is called an arbitrary scale, and those you will be including it in the instrument, and the respondents will be asked to check the statements which they agree or disagree based upon your knowledge. So all these things comes under arbitrary scales. In attitudinal scales can be arbitrarily done. That is based upon your perception. You fix some variables and tell the respondents to rate it, or tell the respondents to agree or disagree with that. And if the selection of the items is made by a panel of judges who evaluate the items as relevant or irrelevant, that type of scale is called Thurston differential scaling. Thurston differential scaling. That is, arbitrarily you make a attitudinal scale, or you discuss with the experts in this field whether this variable is relevant or irrelevant, or you have strong literature or a theoretical background to support that these variables are relevant to your research. So that is called Thurston differential scaling. So this is coming under your non-comparative scale. In non-comparative scale, each object is scaled independently and the resulting data is assumed to be in an interval scale, or it can be in a ratio scale also. And here basically you develop an attitudinal scale. You study the attitude of people towards respondents towards a particular issue, and you arbitrarily use a scale, or you use a Thurston differential scale based upon the variables made by a panel of experts, etc. And already another type which we have already discussed is a summated scale. They consist of a number of statements which expresses either a favorable or unfavorable attitude. Most frequently used summated scale is a study of attitudes followed pattern devised by Likert. There is Likert scale. And what happens is, in a Likert scale, instead of having agree or disagree, we can also have intensities varying from strongly agree to disagree. That is, basically in Likert scale you have maximum 5 or 7 choices, and one side says a favorable opinion and the other side says a very unfavorable opinion. And this is also coming under the study of attitude. So it also comes under a part of attitudinal scales. Attitudinal scales, arbitrary scale, Thurston scale, or it can be a Likert or a summated scale. And hope you remember the semantic differential scale. Where is it coming, the semantic differential scale? It is coming under factor scales. Factor scales are of two types, semantic differential scale as well as the semantic differential scale as well as multidimensional space. What it is called? Multidimensional space. MDS, multidimensional scaling. So the semantic differential scale is part of factor scale. It is a 7-point rating scale, and the respondents rate objects on a number of itemized 7-point rating scales: 0, -1, -2, -3, 1, 2, 3. That is why it is called a 7-point rating scales. If we have no opinion, he will mark it in 0, and if we have a negative opinion, he will mark it in -3. If we have a positive opinion, very positive opinion, he will mark it in 3. Average, it is 2. Okay, it is 1. Similarly, that is in opposite side, the parameters will be opposite of one side. That is, if you have cold on one side, you should have warm on the other side. If you have good on one side, you will have bad on the entire. Correct opposite will be on the other side, and your ratings will be in this particular area: 0, 1, 2, 3, or -1, -2, -3. And another thing is, you can also put it like that. If it is good, you can give a rating of 1. If it is okay, average, you can give a rating as 2. Okay, 3. Moderate, that is, you don't have any opinion, you can give a 5. If it is not good, 5. If it is, you still don't like it, 6. It is very bad for you, you can give a rank of give a marking of 7 also. And the respondents marks the blank that best indicate how they will describe the object being rated. Or can be it. So what I have explained, it can be from -3 to +3. Mean or median values are calculated, and usually it is applied in company brands, product, company image study. It is used to study about some company branded products. About the brand, about the product, or the company image can be collected with the help of semantic differential scales. And coming to the last area, that is, it is basically a summary. We have already said about multidimensional scaling. It is attitude measurement scale. It measures how object is measured against each characteristics at a time. It is independent. There is no relationship between one variable or the another. That is, the perception of a particular product in a multidimensional scale is being reflected in a particular space. Perceptual maps is a perfect example of multidimensional scaling. That is, it shows a relationship among the characteristics representing the perceptions and preferences of respondents spatially by means of a visual display. I have shown a visual display where you have x-axis, y-axis, etc., where you are going to mark your preference of a particular brand based upon those x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, etc. MDS is used when variables of a study are independent. MDS represents geometrically the location and interrelationship among a set of points, and you can if the number of brands or if the number of products is very large, you cannot write or you cannot mark, so you put small marks for each and every brands, and you can find out the position of your brand on the dimension, how people perceive your brand, etc. So for all these things, a spatial representation in a multidimensional area, that is called a multidimensional scaling. And coming to the final summary of the techniques in of the techniques in scaling. Researchers develop these techniques to get data relating to behavioral aspects, especially when we speak about our research, attitude, personality, perception. And since behavior is subjective, measurement is required. We need to convert the qualitative variables into the quantitative values to measure it. So to make measurement very easy, you require what is called scaling techniques. And remember about the Likert type of scale. Remember about the Likert type of scale is also called a summated scale. Remember about the attitudinal type of scales. Remember about the factor scales, where we have a semantic scaling techniques as well as a multidimensional scaling techniques. Multidimensional scaling techniques are important when you want to find out the you want to do some market research, etc. You want a multidimensional space where you can find out the perception of people towards a particular brand, a product, a company image, etc. And you can position it, you can find out the position of your brand, etc. and further do further marketing activities and take further decisions accordingly, etc. This is all about scaling techniques. I'm not gone deep into any of the scales because your paper is a half credit paper, so they don't expect you to go deeper into it. But once you start doing your project, you need to go deeper, have to know all these things in detail and have to do based upon these particular scaling techniques. Thank you all.